Hi, I'm Kristen and welcome to Scrap Fabric Love. Today I'm going to show you my framed scraps quilt. That's this one here. So it's a finished quilt now. If you saw the previous video, it's called Framed Scraps Quilt Block, or if you didn't see it. And that was just a video about how to make a fun scrappy block out of like leftover little chunks of fabric that you don't quite know what to do with, or you really like and you don't want to throw away. So like just little bits, and they can be any size. So if you want to see how I made the blocks, that's in that other video, which I'll link to in the description and also up above wherever in the YouTube cards. But this week I was looking for a kind of fun, no stress project. If you were following my last series on my Uncle Keith's quilt, that was a bit more of a mind bender. This one, I had the blocks and some sections already sewn together from when I was working on it when I did that first video. And then I got distracted and did other things. But some of you have been asking me whether the quilt was finished or how I was finishing it. So I just thought it would be a fun little project to get done this week. So I'm going to show you how I put the blocks together, how I decided to lay out the quilt top, how I quilted it on the Moxie long arm, and then also how I approached my first time ever doing, I think I'm calling it quilt block, no, color block binding. Feels like that's what it should be called. There might be another term where you kind of match the color of the binding with what's on the quilt top. Is there another name for that? Let me know in the comments. So I'd never done it before, so I was just winging it. So you can see how that went as well. So let's get started.
So these are some of the blocks I started with. You basically start with any scrap, any size, and frame it in either white or black, and then white or black again. So there's a whole video about the blocks themselves, which again is linked to in the description. And then I just started randomly sewing the blocks together into kind of white sections and black sections. Didn't know what I was doing yet. And then more recently, it started to take a bit more shape. So I decided to do kind of a white section, a black section, and another little white section at the top. I kind of played around whether it was going to be half and half or like this, and this is roughly the layout I ended up with. The blocks are different sizes. Some were 7-inch, some were 6-inch, and I just basically played around until it all fit. So there was no set measurements for things. That black section is not necessarily straight. This is me doing my famous squaring up. Famous because it's ridiculous. But anyways, I did my best. It was squarish. It's fine. It's actually another long, narrow one, even though I was complaining the last quilt I did that was like that. Because I don't actually know where this quilt is going yet. So I decided to make it to the size requirements of quilts for care leavers. They like their quilts to be 20 inches longer than they are wide. So this ended up, I think, 45 by 70. Well, it's at least 20 inches longer that they want, because they want it to be like a hug that people can wrap around their shoulders. It's for folk between sort of the ages of 18 and 25 leaving care in the UK. So that's like foster care and things like that. So anyway, so I decided I would just make it that size. If it didn't turn out well, I don't have to give it to them. And if it does turn out well, then maybe one of the kids would appreciate it. So anyway, so this is me squaring up all of those rows. I was really just the whole time trimming the blocks to fit each other, adding, I think what you call coping strips in order to make the blocks all fit together. So if they didn't start the same size, you just add a bit of white, add a bit of black until they do fit together. And then I decided to add a border. So I wanted the black border to be with the black and the white border to be on the white. So I pieced some black and white, but I didn't really measure it. So I just knew that the black was a little bit longer than what I needed for the black section, and the white was a little bit longer than what I needed. And then you can see me nesting here the seams between the black and the white, and that's where I'm going to start. So all the strips were 3 inches wide, but the length, I just didn't measure. So I just sort of laid it up against it and go, is that going to be long enough? And then I can trim at the end, which is kind of generally how I do my borders, or really anything. I don't often cut fabric to the precise measurement I need beforehand. So anyway, so I think that was me. Here's where I'm starting. I'm nesting the black with the white, and then I'm just going to sew the white all the way down that long white section until the end. and then trim the excess white off the end, and then turn it over and sew the black border down where the black border needs to be, and then trim a 1/4 inch from the edge for the black and join that excess white that I trimmed off the other end, and then keep sewing. So it probably sounds fiddly to those of you who would prefer to measure this all ahead of time, but for me, this made it much simpler, and it just made so much sense to me. So in order to make that second join, which obviously is the more difficult one, I sewed the black and the white together with the 1/4 inch seam, and it didn't quite fit. So then I just sewed a little bit further in. So it had to be a little more than a 1/4 inch in order for me to get the nesting where it needed to be. And then that white is still longer than I need, so I'm fine. I'm not going to get cut short, and I can just trim that off in the end. I use all my scraps, guys, so don't worry about that. And then I could just continue on with the white for the rest of it. So just doing a border the way you would normally do one. So that was how I got the black and the white to match up for the border, and mostly that was just so that I had some trimming room after I've done my quilting on the long arm, which is what I'm going to show you next. The backing was just 2 different blues, and then I basically just floated the quilt top. I don't tend to baste my quilts properly down because I've just never gotten the knack of it anyway. So this is the kind of bizarre quilting that I decided to go for with this. So I decided to do sort of match sticky quilting. So they're not exactly evenly spaced lines, but they're kind of close enough. I'm using the manual channel locks, so it's those little white plastic circles that you put over the wheels so that the moxie can only go left to right, not back and forward. However, in reality, you can pull you can force it, which is what I'm doing when I'm going up and down each line. So I've got the channel locks on the whole time. I'm just going back and forth, doing these little lines until I hit the blocks. And then I'm stopping and turning around. And I was using, you'll see me using some rulers. I was going to, try and do like a stitch in the ditch around the blocks kind of thing, which I think, like professional long arm quilters look away. You don't want to be watching this, because I'm pretty sure the standard thing for this would be if you wanted to do something, you just wanted to leave the blocks unquilted and then you wanted to have a background, which is essentially what I'm doing. You would stitch in the ditch around the blocks first to kind of secure them or make sure they're flat. And I didn't do that. So my blocks are not flat. They're a little bit poofy. I think when you see the end, it looks okay because it kind of looks like the frames and the scraps are 3D and the rest of it is the wall, like as if the scraps are in a gallery or something like that. Or that's what I'm telling myself anyway. But so this is not do what I do. This is just here's what I did. Okay, so I hope you understand that that's what most of my videos are. It's usually me making it up as I go along, and I'm just taking you along for the ride. I'm not saying this is the best way to do anything at all. So anyway, what I was doing these straight lines until I got to the edge of the block. Here I'm on the edge, and generally I was more starting in the middle. But anyway, you'll get to see I've got some sped up. It's not this slow the whole time. But anyways, as I would get like this to the end of the throat space of the machine, here I'm using a ruler, but I stopped using the ruler further on. I would sort of try and do a bit of a stitch in the ditch around the edge of the block, up the side, and then along the top, and then go back down the other side to start the lines again. So you'll see that here in just a second. I didn't really know I was going to do this when I started. It just happened. And then once you've got so far with it, you kind of got to keep going with it. And I decided I didn't mind it. So, so this is where I'm going down the other side, and you'll see in just a minute. Yeah, so here, once I get to that side, I'm going all the way as far as I can go with the straight line. So there's no blocks in my way. I'm just quilting over white here. And you can see some of the different white fabrics that I used because I was using different leftovers and scraps. So, and you'll see that in the black as well when I show you the pictures of the quilt in the sunshine as well. Anyway, so I keep going with the straight lines until I hit a block. So in this case, it's the one we started with these numbers on it. And then I kind of advance the needle, a little bit, right here, 1 or 2 stitches forward, and then go back with my straight line all the way to the other end. And I keep doing that until I hit a block again. And then I kind of reverse. It's almost like the needle and the foot are playing ping pong. Not quite ping pong. Something where it's kind of like the motion, you hit a wall and then you're just going to go back. So except for here. So when I get to something like this, where it's just, I'm almost hitting it, I'm just going to go do my kind of stitch in the ditch above. You can see it's not straight line, so I'm having to force it. This was probably the most difficult bit. And then I go sort of back a stitch and then continued on with my straight line. And so I just kept doing that. So here it's ping, it's hitting the block, and then we're going to go back. And here it's just about missing that block, so I kept going. But then it's going to hit this one. So instead of going all the way to the other side of the quilt, it's hit this block. I'm going a couple stitches and I'm pinging myself back. Now I found the most difficulty forcing the channel locks and forcing the machine when it was on a diagonal like this one. So here I've got some white stitching where I don't really want it. But anyways, I didn't pick too much out. I just left that, but you could. And so I'm kind of, that was the principle that I was working on, was kind of matchstick quilting. When we hit a block, we go back the other way. And vaguely trying to stay doing the middle first. It's not, I guess I wasn't doing that. This is the top of the quilt, so I hadn't started in the middle here. But in general, I was trying to stay mostly in the middle first so that, you know, all the bulk gets spread out and everything. So here it is sped up, and maybe you'll get a bit of an idea of what I'm meaning. So I'm pinging back and forth from the blocks and just keep going like that. It seemed to make sense to me at the time. And then I would end up filling in spaces like that where there's a diagonal and things like that. So I quite enjoyed doing it. It was quite, you know, I had my podcast on in my ears, and it was quite relaxing. So I don't know whether I would choose to do it again this way. There's probably better ways I could have done it, but I like how it turned out, and I liked experimenting with just doing the straight lines this way. This is me just advancing it. I'm going to show you just a little bit more sped up close up here. I changed the thread when I got to the black. So it's white on white and black on the black. I think I didn't actually have black thread for the bobbin, so I used a super dark green in the back. Anyway, I would love to know, not so much for quilting, but like for piecing. I struggled with, some of the time I was using black thread, some of the time I was using white. Do you use white thread or black thread if you're piecing white with black? You know, like this. So these were all kind of, obviously the scraps in the middle are different colors, but the frames and the background are just black and white. So what color thread would you use? I don't know. I used both and I can't decide which one was better. So anyway, I'd love to hear what you do. So this is just super sped up of me doing the same thing, this kind of ping, 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 back and forth, and then switching to white again to finish it up.
Okay, so I'm hoping you can see this. This is the quilt finished but not bound. So what I want to do is have white binding where it's white and black binding where it's black. I've not done this before, full disclosure, so we'll see if this works out. I'm just going to try something. Did I look out how you're meant to do this? No, I didn't. Anyway, so what I've done so far is, because like all around the top is white, all around the bottom is white. So I've gone around and sewed my binding on the back. I do machine binding, so it's machine sewed on the back and then flipped over and machine sewed on the front. So that's how I do mine. I've done all the white basically, and I've left a tag, so you can see, because I used white bobbin thread for the white and black for the black, or dark green or whatever it was. So I've gone almost to the edge and left myself a tiny tail to tuck in there. And then I've done the same here. I probably left myself a little too long there. I don't need that much. And I don't know if you can see from there. Let me just make this bigger for a sec. I've changed the setup of my sewing machines again, guys. So this is the new one, the straight stitch one, and that's the faff over there. And they're kind of butted up against each other. So this one currently has black thread threaded in it, and I'm going to use it for the black binding. And then that one's got white thread threaded in it. I don't know that that's totally necessary. You could just pick one color, but anyway, that's what I wanted to try. So I'm going to attach my black in the same way I normally would, except that I'm going to tuck these ends. I'll trim the other one inside the black bindings. You've probably seen this as a method to like joint binding at the end. So that's what I'm going to try to do, but I'm going to try and line it up as best I can exactly where that meets. We'll see how we go. So I think what I'm going to do first is just, leave myself the tail again and attach it. And then I'll worry about fiddling with, tucking it in and getting the join exactly where I want it. So that's what I'm going to do now. Turn this on. Let me make you a little closer again. There we go. Right. So I don't know how much. My intention is that the white will go inside the black because you won't see that as much as if I tried to put the black inside the white, right? So, but I'm going to just leave myself a little bit over because I'll probably fold things and figure out I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Exactly. So I'm going to just put it there, and I'm not going to, well, it doesn't need to be over that much because it's not going to, right, okay. Maybe there. And then I'm not going to sew right up to the edge of where the black stitching starts because I want to, fiddle with it. So I'm going to start like here, maybe. Okay.
So I had a bit of an issue filming where I joined, so it's going to get a bit of out of order here, but I've tried to show you what I need to show you in different clips.
Okay. So now I've stopped a little bit before where I'm going to have to join it again there. Grab some scissors. And then leave myself a little tail again. I'm going to be generous again. I'm probably going to end up trimming that. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll come back and figure out how we're going to join it. So what I want to do, so here is where it joins there. So I've got to figure out, I want it to be here. I'll fold the end in, but that's probably too much. So maybe here. Let's try that. So this, I'm just going to fold the raw edges under. Okay, so for the bit that I don't think I recorded very well, basically what I was doing was folding this under, just like that. So this is the end of the black binding, right? There's a whole rest of it here attached to the quilt. And let's call this line where the black stitching stops and the white stitching, oh, you can't, starts. Yeah, you can see my hand. Okay, right. So I'll just put this on top to keep that for now. And then I've got this one, so also attached, like down here, but it's not sewn yet. And then I was making like airplane wings. So like that. Right? And then all I'm doing is popping this inside here. Now the point's going to be way further up because there's black binding here. It's continuing on the side of the quilt. And then all I was doing was sewing right up to here, back stitching. So I didn't cross over from the black to the white. Whether that's the most secure way of doing it, I don't know.
That was what I meant by stuff getting out of order. So when I'm talking about only stitching over the black, I was talking more about how I was attaching it on the front once I flipped it over. So when I'm at this point here, attaching it and still sewing to the back of the quilt, I just sewed over the black and the white with the black thread because you're not going to see that stitch line because it's going to get covered by the binding on the front. So it doesn't matter what color it is, right? So sorry the filming of that went a bit awry, but hopefully it made sense. I basically just folded the black over until it met up with the black line and tucked the white inside, essentially.
Okay, so that's the one black section. Oh, I missed a bit there. Let's do that. It's hard to see black on black, eh? And again. Better. Okay. So I thought I was recording, putting all of those joining all the binding bits. I thought I was doing a better recording earlier, and I wasn't on. So let me just show you. Basically, it was, I folded it over. Can you see that? Right where the black was. And then inside here is the white with those airplane wings. So I'm on the machine with the black thread. I'm gonna finish this black side, and then I'm gonna go over the other machine and do all the white. Obviously, if you wanted to do the same thing, you could just rethread your machine. So you don't need two machines. This is actually the first project where I've done this, like set up, since I've had the two machines, where I've set up different threads and different whatever to, so that's where we want to be. So I'm going to start there. Boom, come on. I'm trying to make sure I can see that I'm in the binding. Okay, and then keep going.
It's so easy to see on the video when I'm missing the binding with the thread there, but from the angle I was at, I just didn't see it till I was finished. But that's the good thing about it. You can always just go back and sew over it. It's fine.
Okay, here we are at the faff, and we're going to do the white. So, there we go. This is the thing with going back and forth. I want to put the foot down now, which is not necessary. Okay. That was my little back stitch. And off we go. For anyone who's wondering how these videos are made, it is currently 10:45 UK time on Monday morning. Obviously, if you're watching this in the future, that means nothing. But if you're watching this the day it comes out, you'll probably understand the time difference between when the actual binding was getting put on and when the video went out. So that is the kind of channel you are watching.
I generally put out new videos every Monday. Sometimes they're just stories of me making a quilt like this, and sometimes they're proper quilt block tutorials or little projects and things like that. I tend to put them out afternoon UK time, so like morning US time usually. I do sometimes miss a week, you know, life happens and I've got little kids and stuff like that, but that is generally the schedule. So if you're looking out for when new videos are, usually Monday, but you can also sign up for notifications or sign up to my email newsletter if you want to make sure you don't miss one. So when I get to the point to the binding where it's meeting the black, all I'm doing is back stitching right before we get to the black so that the thread doesn't cross over to the other color.
So I'm pretty pleased for my first time doing, I don't know, do you call it color block binding or trying to match it up with, I've done scrappy binding, but I've not done where you try and match the binding to something in the quilt top before. Oh, I'm not showing you. There you go. This is my favorite one here. And that one's all right, I think. I mean, I think they're all right. That one, you can, I guess, kind of see a little step. That's not the best one, probably. So that side could be better, but I think it generally does what I wanted it to. And we'll see when I take photos outside, which I'm going to do just now, whether you can even tell the ones that look a bit funny. So, okay, I'll go take photos and I'll show you how it turned out.
So here it is out in the Edinburgh sunshine and wind. So it did go flying a couple times when I was trying to take pictures and record videos and that. But here's a little bit of a video where maybe you can see what I mean by the kind of 3D poofiness of the unquilted scraps in their frames. They are, some of them, a bit misshapen, which maybe not everyone would love, but I kind of actually don't mind. And I think it definitely emphasizes them in the way that the quilt blocks were meant to emphasize them. So another one of those happy accidents, I guess. This is it from the back, so you can see maybe more clearly what the thread path was for the quilting. So there's a few places where I would have gone over, I guess, edges of the scraps more than once. So you'll see it a little bit darker white when we go by there. But otherwise, hopefully it kind of makes sense how I did that. Not that you're going to want to copy it, but anyway. And yeah, just a few more close-up shots so you can just kind of see how it came out. And here's the obligatory shot of the quilt on my clothesline being whipped around by the Edinburgh wind once again. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So it was a really fun project to get done this week. I did just want to say, for those of you who have hung around to the end, a big thank you and shout out to all the folk from my newsletter list who emailed me this week on the back of my email to you guys. You know who you are and you know what I'm talking about, and it was much appreciated. So thank you so much. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, then you can subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Do leave me a comment, let me know what you thought, and I do hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.